one of the topics is around the psychology of sales. I would the thing that always baffles me is, what are the stepping stones, or what are the basics that everybody really needs to learn in the psychology of sales? If you could give us your top things that you see on a repetitive basis to help us and help me, help others selfishly. So.
Yes, of course. Like I teach in La Trobe University about the psychology of sales for the entrepreneur, and there are a lot of misconceptions of what selling is, and you see that a lot especially on LinkedIn when they approach you on the direct message side of thing. There's a lot of cut and paste, and there are some other sales coaches as well. We all agree that is just way too much. It's not the way to do it. There is some negativity. A lot of negativity attached to the word selling, sales, salesy, anything that has sales in it. Everyone thinks that it is a swear word. The reality is, this is the first one that I believe. Sales skill is a life skill. Everyone has it. Everyone has learned it when they grow up. Whether you're doing it as a job, whether you are doing a completely different job, it doesn't really matter. There's always an element of selling involved to actually get what you want in life. That's why I always believe that sales is a life skill. Like when you're growing up as a baby, you cry because that's the only mode of communication you have. You're selling yourself to go, pay attention to me. There's not always the belief that selling has to be about a product, about a service. It's nothing to do with selling. Is yourself, you as a person. It's almost like, the same as branding and marketing, and you're trying to tell other people the moment you wake up that you're worth it. Hang out with me or talk to me. That involves selling yourself. The reason why you have friends, the reason why you have a job, at some point in time, you actually took the step to sell yourself to make sure that you are worth it, that someone actually do engage you or employ you or do something or talk to you. So never be afraid to sell. Never be afraid of the word selling. Too often that I hear in meetups, in meetings, that a presenter will start with a statement, I'm not here to sell to everyone, but if you're interested, just go to the back of the room for my brochure. I think that people make a mistake of selling. The word selling is they misinterpret the aggressive, pushy people versus word selling. Because the definition of selling is, exchanging something for something that is mutually beneficial for two parties. Right? That is selling. At the end of the day, that is it.
Right.
But if you're saying, oh, don't be too salesy or aggressive seller, you can't combine aggressive and selling at the same time. You can't. The word doesn't exist in reality. The person, if they're aggressive, they're just aggressive.
Yeah, good point.
They're not selling, they're just being aggressive. Or if they're a pushy salesperson, well, no, it could be the job is a salesperson, but he's just or she's just being pushy. So we have to really start to change the way we think about what selling is, the word selling is. It's okay to sell. The question is, how do you do it?
Right. So
the how bit is most important.
So I heard something on a couple of different things earlier this week that stuck in my mind, and they were saying that if you substitute the word selling for servicing, so people think about servicing maybe somebody else's want or need, or servicing the ability to solve a problem. That was the other. So that's really stuck in my mind. It stuck in my mind because I knew we were going to have this live on the psychology of sales. So what are your thoughts on that if people substitute those words a little bit?
I mean, serving our client or serving someone is part of selling. I mean, I don't believe that you have to replace it. It is just the belief of it that they are the same thing. Because at the end of the day, those people who are the greatest salespeople, right? The people that I know, they are servants. They serve their clients, but in exchange for money, mostly, right? As a sales rep, right? At the end of the day, but there is a servanthood of intent. I think when I say how, the how bit is the one that I think damaged quite a lot of the reputation of what selling is.
Hmm.
The lack of listening. The lack of listening, active listening skill is definitely out there, and listening to understand is another thing that is actually quite popular out there, and I always believe in that. And the other thing is, like, they always believe that selling is about telling people how wonderful and how great your product is, and that thing they think that is selling. Well, yes and no, that is part of selling, but that's not only selling. Selling is also about listening and asking the right questions and engage with empathy what the issue your customer has, and somehow
Hmm.
being able to have sufficient skill set to ask quality questions to ensure that you are able to engage the customer. And you notice that I place enormous amount of emphasis on questioning, asking
Hmm.
questions. Because
Right.
if you use too much statement in a typical sales call, normally in a B2B side of things, it is going to be very difficult for you to be able to engage the customer, because engagement of customer is not one way, it's two
Right.
ways.
Hmm.
And if the moment you come to a sales meeting or sales call, the first thing you do is to talk about how brilliant your product is and all the features and benefits, chances are it doesn't resonate with the customer because, well, what is in it for me? Because I don't have the problem that you described. So
Hmm.
selling initially, as at least a big part of that, the actual act of selling is about learning how to ask the right question, practice active listening in order for you to understand the customer's specific challenges, because you can't make the assumption that your product is catered for a population or target market, that everyone in that target market will have exactly the same problem. They will have a variation problem. And not only that, their priorities are different. So if you're not willing to want to take the time to understand your customer, that's why it is such a difficult uh, exercise to engage with the customer.
What would you say is your number one favorite question to kind of break the ice and to get yourself into that listening mode so that you get the person you're engaging with talking? So what's
Sure.
your favorite question that you use to help people?
So I don't have a favorite one because it really depends on the context. But the
Okay.
one thing that I do help people to understand is based on the context of whatever industry you're in or whatever you're trying to sell, your intent is the most important because that dictates your question. So
Yeah.
say, for example, if a customer is in a product sort of like industry, they're looking for a product and to solve a problem, certainly a question such as like, when it comes to kind of like the subject X, what are some of the challenges that you currently face in your organization? It's an
Mhm.
open-ended question, very open. However, sometimes some people ask, what challenges do you have? Well, you know what, that's not accurate because it could be any challenge that is not relevant to your business. So
Mhm.
the best thing to do is to open up a question by helping the customer understand that in the context of what your company do you have any issues or gaps or challenges within that that
Right.
you can actually maybe share it with me so that we can have a discussion point based on, of course, as an
Mhm.
expert in this industry or whatever in this area, like, you would like to help.